Right now what we're seeing is very large pools of pretty well organized assets which are going on. But that is also assets that are flowing out of institutional space and towards retail. If somebody's got $500 million worth of, real estate rental payments turned into a set of securities, that sort of stuff going out towards retail, there's an enormous amount of diligence that has already been done. The thing that everybody's hoping we're going to see one day is, I want to sell my house, and that winds up on the chain, and then the transaction happens quickly and easily. And at that point, you're going to start getting disputes because, somebody's kitchen boiler explodes, and then somebody has to go and figure out whose fault it is, and blah, 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 blah. So in terms of volume, the defect rate on those transactions is surprisingly high, but at the point where people have a bundle of rent-backed or mortgage-backed securities, the buffering for those defects is already built into the pricing of those assets, right? They've already got margin and, contingency and all the rest of that stuff built in. And the efficiency comes from stripping that stuff back out again and then pricing it correctly. So if we've got 1,000 houses and they're being sold as a big old bundle and you're taking 1,000th of a share of that, you're in a very different position from if we've got 1,000 houses and each one of those things has a portfolio, and then you're analysing each one of those, kind of prospectuses per house using an AI system, and then that prices the risk on that individual object. And when we start going down that track, I think what you get is an entirely new kind of real estate because you start optimizing for things like predictability of maintenance costs, because it goes from being bundled into the financial instruments to being broken out in an atomic way that allows it to be priced. And I think at that point we could start really beginning to see an acceleration of transformation in areas like 3D printed buildings, structural insulated panel construction. You actually start changing the way that real estate is built to make it easy to verify that it's in good condition, to make it easy to price, to make it easy to securitize. And that sounds crazy, but if you think about the way that we transformed computers so that we could put them efficiently into data centers, it's a very similar kind of transformation. When you start getting enough deal flow that things become statistically visible, you start changing the way that things are done, specifically so that you can create these kind of bundles cleanly. And we've had some conversations with 3D printed house companies which were incredibly exciting, but we're still 15 minutes into the future.